But that's okay because of his intensity. Travis can handle obvious camera moves, you know. Wells did that when I saw Citizen Kane for the first time on television. I realized I saw what a director does, a certain kind of director. Because I had still liked John Ford films, and I realized, well, I wasn't aware of the camera there, but yet I was aware of the image. Now what's the difference between the image of Ford and what's the difference of the image of Wells? You know, both equally valid, both brilliant. You know, one's a poetic view, another is something else. There's something else going on. You had Godard in the 60s reinventing cinema constantly, every movie, until he finally said I had enough of it. It wasn't important in the first place.
And making life in cinema equivalent,
totally.
You know. And
yeah, well, that's
it's like at the end of your film, Last Temptation, Christ's life runs out in a way, and the movie runs out at the same time. It didn't really. Well, the film didn't really.
The film did. The film did, because what happened that day, that particular shot that day, it would be the one, that particular shot, there was a problem. We were shooting so fast. There was a problem when they put the magazine back on. Somehow when they took it off, they had leaked a little light into it, and that was the take I liked best. He said, and that was the take I liked best. And I said, well, then by all means, let's just let the whole thing run out to edge fog.
It is accomplished.
Later in the 60s, you went to NYU, you got married, you started your own filmmaking, you started teaching filmmaking. You made a film called The Big Shave.
Yes, now that was not out of a student situation. That was out of Angry Arts Against Vietnam Week, was called.
There's a funny contradiction, I think, because in the 60s you weren't the most trendy of people. You know, you were still living at home.
I was pretty much still living at home. Parents, yeah.
You were behind the times in
totally
some way.
Behind it. I was pretty much from the. We were like living in a little Sicilian village. And I had sensed something, having gone to NYU, I sensed something, NYU being on the west side of Manhattan, and Greenwich Village, where things were a little more freer, a little more open. I began to get more open-minded, began to meet people who were not Italian-Americans, who came from all different parts of the world, and hearing all these different viewpoints, and that's when I began to understand certain things politically.
It feels very anguished.
No, not really. No. I thought it was... I was angry, I think. I've always been angry, I think, and... I was pretty angry. But when the film was shown, it got major laughs. And I said, my God, it was meant to get laughs. But I said, don't be silly, take him. You know, take him, enjoy him, because the laughter is also very nervous. And they get, plus the laughing and booing and hissing and people throwing things at the screen. It happened here at Lincoln Center. You have to build up to it. You cheated.
This is Raging Bull. That's in Raging Bull. That shot, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I never got over getting that shot. Yeah.
But what happens here is very interesting.
I just ran out of music.
But then you go.
Oh, the red, yeah.
Red.
To red, yeah,
and
exactly.
Again, particularly in your movies of the 90s, I think more than before, like in Age of Innocence and Cape Fear, you do that full frame color, don't you?
Yeah, but I think I just got tired of trying to be subtle about it. I guess I happen to like the color red, and so I want to use it.
But also yellow in Age of Innocence.
Yellow in Age of Innocence, because the flowers. Yeah, the flowers. Yellow, feeling of life, growth, something precious, something alive, and this incredible power, passion that he had for her, and she had for him. It was something quite beautiful. Perfect for that. But that comes right out of Black Narcissus. It's the extraordinary flash, I think, of red or orange when Kathleen Byron collapses, and then everything fades. And then suddenly you're back in. And
it's like
fantastic.
Your whole world is suddenly...
It creates a feeling of actually what it feels like to faint.
Yeah.
And to lose consciousness.
Yeah.
And if you did it visually, it was quite something. But it was such a shock to see that color come up. But why not? I mean, just do it. Throw the color up there on the screen. The color is emotion.
And then you moved to LA. You did Woodstock. It was
worked
successful.
on Woodstock, yeah.
Did you get an Oscar for Woodstock?
No. Thelma got nominated.
Oh yeah.
but I was an editor under her.
Yeah.
So I was not nominated.
And famously, you went to Woodstock wearing
Woodstock,
cufflinks.
Yes, Michael Wadley got Bob Maurice, who produced the picture, got the Oscar. Yes, I wore cufflinks, French cuffs.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. You still hadn't grown your hair. And
No, I hadn't grown it too long.
And you went to LA, and you got into. Apparently, you bought a poster from 2 weeks for another town.
To another town I put over my bed. Yeah.
As an intent saying, I will not stay here anytime.
Freddie Weintraub, who was the vice president of Warner Brothers at the time, he had this rock and roll film he wanted me to edit because I was one of the editors of Woodstock, and he said, "Listen, don't come out for 2 weeks. You know, I won't screw you too bad." At least he said he was going to screw me, so at least he was upfront about it. And went out for 2 weeks and stayed for 13 years.
And you did Boxcar Bertha,
yes,
which is one of the few films of yours that I don't like. I hope it's okay to say
that's
that.
all right. I'm not that fond of it either. But what it was a way of learning how to make a picture. You see, up to this point, there was no schedules. There was no production. You see, in other words, we shot when we had the camera, and if the actors were still talking to us, and please begging favors from people. Whereas Boxcar Bertha, where you started on a Monday and 24 days later you finished. 6 days a week, and that's it. And you have a certain amount of shots to get before lunch, and you better get them. And that's a very important thing. Without having done Boxcar, there's no way I could have done Mean Streets.
Sure.
Yeah.
So you did Mean Streets, and it made you a star in the way, did it? Your phone started ringing all the time. You got loads of scripts offered to you, and everything.
That's what they tell me. Yeah.
And did you want to be famous? Did you want to be?
Oh yeah, absolutely, yes.
And did all that generation of people that you met then,
yes,
Spielberg and Schrader, and
we all did. I mean, when I was at NYU, I knew I was a director. I was making a living editing somewhat other people's films and documentaries and things like that. I was making a living also doing a little bit of writing, but basically the only thing I really can't do on my own. I tried. I have no knowledge of any kind of lighting or camera work, how a camera works. I've tried that. I've done 16 millimeter and things like that, but I'm not, where I came from, it was always dark.
So do you leave it always to your DOP?
It was always dark in the lower, yeah, well, pretty much the DP. No, I designed with him. I designed the shots. I designed the movement of the shots and the size of the frame. I have a real problem sometimes dealing with the light. I don't know where the light sometimes is coming from. For me, like it's New York. Look at us right now. Just turn a light on. What do you want? You want you want the sun to be shining through here? It's absurd. Don't tell me you want smoke in the light too. It doesn't happen in my office, or in the editing room. Put a tungsten light on. What do I care? I mean, it's like it's part of the type. But yet, I also saw the light, for example, that Roger Deakins understood, which is the light from the butter lamps in Kundun. You see, darkness and the greasy walls and that sort of thing. That was very important. But no, I felt I was a director, and I knew I was, but other people didn't take me that seriously. And I was shameless. I went to every party in L.A. I promoted myself shamelessly. Dreadful
Why did you want to? Why, as a self-confessed working-class person, did you have the confidence?
Oh, I was a working-class person, but it never worked.
Yeah.
My parents did the working. They gave me money to go to school.
Yeah.
I had asthma. I was taken care of.
But one of the things about
I
working-class
got married,
people...
Didn't even take care of it. I left. I just come on. I was like a crazy filmmaker.
Yeah.
I wanted to make movies.
But there's this issue of confidence. So many working-class people maybe don't have they don't think that their voice is important enough to be heard by everybody. I don't know why.
You're absolutely right. I have no idea why I thought... I just was burned with the passion of these moving images and the emotions I saw growing up around me, and to sort of combine the two. I don't know how else to do it.
Okay, let's look at a bit of Mean Streets here.
Hallelujah. I've come to create order. Carl, J and B and soda, please. May God be with you.
Well, that's just the first chapter of Ulysses.
Let me ask you something.
What?
Art thou the king of the Jews?
Dost thou say this of thyself, or have others told thee of me?
Am I a Jew?
My kingdom is not of this world.
So you had read James Joyce at the time of making Mean Streets?
I didn't understand it, but I understood more. I identified more with, of course, Portrait of the Artist and Dubliners, Dubliners. But here is basically, we sat around. These things were said. Quotes from the scriptures came out all the time. People spoke that way.
That's extraordinary.
Not necessarily as clearly as this in this particular scene, but the gods, the saints were called upon. If people had, I never forget one woman.